Hello everybody, welcome to Macro Talk. It is Tuesday, November the 18th, and tonight chapter 3 of our focus stacking series. Tonight we're talking about the stack itself. And on Thursday at 2 p.m, the final chapter in this series, we're talking about the picture, making a beautiful picture out of your stacking outputs. That'll be on Thursday. Saturday we have a presume from 10 until 12 noon. We're going to be talking about insects, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of my tips and tricks for buying on the international market, and sharing some materials with you. That's presume on Saturday. If you're not a member of Patreon, you need to become one, and you would love these presume meetings. They're a lot of fun. 2 hours twice a month we get together and talk macro. Saturday also, right after presume, we have tangent. Open to anybody who's interested in 3D modeling, 3D printing, and a little bit of self-torture, because this week we're going to be talking about Blender. That is the one of the most confusing 3D tools available to mankind. I am so lost trying to learn that. But that's what we're going to be talking about on Saturday, Blender. Okay, next week is Thanksgiving here in America, and I have been invited to a Thanksgiving celebration, and that happens rarely enough that I am going to go. And it's going to interfere with our Thursday Macro Talk too. And I don't like that, because I know that some folks get kind of bored on the holidays and look forward to hanging out for a little bit. So what I'm going to do is this. I am going to have a presume kind of meeting. It'll be a Zoom meeting open to everybody, anybody who wants to drop by. I'm going to aim for about 4 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time, so it won't be too terribly late in the UK. But we will just sit around and talk for an hour. Anything you want to talk about. I'm not going to bring anything to lecture you with. It'll just be chatting. So if you're interested, I will post the invitation next Monday in my blog post, but I'll be shooting for around 4 o'clock Central Time in the US. Yeah, if you can get permission to stay up after your bedtime, then you're invited, and you should come. And it's going to be a laugh. Show up, hang out, and have a good time. Okay, only 1 week left for the One Leaf Dead or Alive November photo competition. Yeah, so you need to get on it. You can go find a leaf. They're all over the place. They're falling out of the trees for some reason. And yeah, I'm still looking for a volunteer guest judge for that competition. If you want to raise your hand and let me know about it in the chat, or get in touch with me otherwise, yeah, I'm looking for a guest judge. It's a lot of fun. As long as you've been taking pictures for a while and you know what you're on about, that would be great. Okay, December is going to be a wild card competition. Everybody gets 2 entries in December. Everybody, even the likes of Graham, will get 2 entries. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be some prizes this time too. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Okay, so last week on Thursday in Macro Talk 2, I introduced the audience. You weren't there because it was on Thursday. I introduced the audience to a new company, new to me, not a new company, somebody I'd never heard of before, called FilmFix. And they're a company that, well, they fix film. They take your old movie film, stuff like this. This is getting ready to go to FilmFix, and they turn it into a digital record. Way more than that. They do a lot of stuff to the film to get you the best possible digital records you can. I'd never heard of them until my friend Mike told me about them, and Mike is a movie person. Proof of that is he lives in Hollywood. When he calls me, my phone goes off and it says Hollywood, and I know it's Mike. So this guy knows everything there is to know about film. He won an Oscar for the Titanic film, the one with the boat that sank, and that had lots of special effects in it, and that's what his specialty is. But he knows everything about film. Can you imagine being the people at FilmFix and having him as a customer? Because that's how I learned about it, was through him. It would be like owning a bookshop when Charles Dickens came in looking for recommendations on what he could read. Yeah, it must be hard on the company, but yeah, they're nice people, and if Mike's using them and he felt so moved to call me and tell me that I needed to use them, that's good enough for me. So the folks over there, Nathaniel and Laura, that's the whole company, by the way. They do all of this stuff by hand, and they are apparently the best in the business. I take Mike's word for it, absolutely. And if you have any film laying around, and it's precious stuff, you can't muck around with this stuff, and you can't leave it too long. This is from 1960, some of it. So yeah, you need to get it digitized before it rots. Put it in an envelope and fill out the order form on their website. You want to see what their website looks like? I bet you do. Let me find it. Where is it? This is typical of me. I didn't think in advance and have that ready to go, but I'm so slick with this computer thing now. So this is the company, filmfix.com. They're in Switzerland too. I know that I've got several viewers in Switzerland, so yeah, you can both use them. But anyway, this is what they do. They're in California, and yeah, they'll be happy to take your call. Tell them I sent you. They'll give you 10% off your first order, and check out their website. Okay, that's it. And by the way, I'm not a member of this company. Neither is Mike. Neither of us are getting paid to do this. It's if Mike calls me and says he's got a recommendation that he feels strongly about, I'm going to tell you about it if I think you'd like it too. And that's the end of the story. So give them a call. Let them take care of your film for you. You'll be glad you did. Okay, focus stacking. Let's get down to business. We started a minute early tonight, because I'm sure I'm going to run a minute over as always. Last week we looked at the big picture. What is focus stacking? Why do we do it? What are the issues we're likely to run into, and so on and so forth. And then on Thursday we talked about acquiring the stack, how we take the pictures. We talked about the various different methods, the equipment you'd need, how to set it up, and so on and so forth. Tonight we're going to talk about probably the most crucial component of a focus stacked image, and that is the software that we use to stack the images together. And it'll boil down to this. It'll boil down to me telling you what your alternatives are, what your options are, and helping you choose the right stacking program. And there are reasons for picking one or the other, and we'll go through all of those. What I am not going to do tonight, though I had initially planned on doing it, and then I figured out it was no way going to have time to do it, I'm not going to walk you through a stack or walk you through a retouching exercise. I will, however, do that next Thursday at the hangout if you're interested. You just need to let me know, or I could do a video on it. I haven't done a video on this in a long time, and my techniques have matured somewhat. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then on Thursday we're going to talk about how to take your picture that comes out as an output from Zerine or Helicon, and how do you make that into a really nice photograph, because you're not finished just when the stack is finished. Hardly ever is that the end. So don't be alarmed that I have 31 pages of notes. Well, no, be alarmed. That's a good idea, be alarmed. I'm alarmed. There is so much to talk about, and I will go as fast as I can to explain to you how to make the right choices in transforming a stack of images that you have photographed on your new macro stage, how you turn those into a single coherent focused stack image, final image. So there are 3 or more. Yeah, there's probably several lower ranked stacking platforms that are usable. I've used several of them. None of them were memorable enough for me to write them down. Really, it comes down to whether you use Helicon Focus or Zerine Stacker or Photoshop. Let's throw Photoshop out right now. It is not on the same level as the other two. It doesn't it doesn't do much for a macro photographer. It's the kind of program that's quite effective for focus stacking a landscape, for example. If you wanted to do a landscape and stitch together 3 photographs at different focal planes, so that you could get the whole vista in focus, yeah, that would be great. And that's the kind of thing that Photoshop does pretty well. What it doesn't do very well are deep stacks, high magnification stacks, anything that requires retouching. It's not a professional stacking program. So it really comes down to Helicon and Zerine. Now, I have beat this horse to death on several occasions, and I have gone over many times, what my preference is and why. And I will be repeating some of that tonight, but hopefully I'm going to give you some new information that will help you understand what the differences are, because they're important. So, talking about strengths and limitations, Helicon is fast, it has a simple user interface, and if you have a computer with a nice powerful GPU, that'll help hurry things up. Sometimes at high magnifications, my experience has been artifact is more of a problem than it is in Zerine, and I'll explain why as we go. Zerine is slower. You have far more manual control. There are many things that you can adjust as you get more familiar with the program. It has a vastly superior retouching engine, absolutely the best in class retouching engine, and accordingly it is a much better program for high magnification photography. And I'll explain why. Photoshop, okay for small stacks. It's just not suitable for deep stacks. It really isn't. So how do we prepare a stack? We've got a card with, say, 100 photographs on it that are a housefly, pictures of a housefly. Well, the first thing we need to do is import them off our card into our filing system. They need to be on your computer. I recommend Lightroom. It just has a seamless interface and works. So I put them in Lightroom, and the first thing I do is I carefully go through all of the images in that particular stack, and I trim off the tail and the snout. That sounds awfully visceral, doesn't it? I throw out the pictures that are out of focus before the image begins to come into focus, and I throw out the frames at the end where it's back out of focus again. I only want the frames where the focus begins and where the focus ends. Everything else is just a waste of time. Get rid of that. Get rid of any obvious duds. Any frames where the flash didn't fire, or there was some other issue or problem, a wandering insect appears in the field or something. Get rid of all of those, and be very, very careful about removing large numbers. If your flash consistently stopped going off every other picture towards the end of the frame, you're probably not going to get a good picture out of that stack. But you can give it a try if you wish. Depends on your step length and so on. But this is really just removing the obviously bad frames. Decide early whether or not you are going to use a slabbing strategy. Very briefly, when we stack images, we normally go through the process that the computer does this. You don't do it. The computer will align the pictures from front to back. It will get them all in alignment by moving them however many pixels it needs to, so that everything is lined up and ready to stack. That is a process that takes only a few moments. Then the proper stacking begins. Now, in a regular stack, you will go through all of the pictures, and the software will pick out the parts that are in focus, and it will build an image from those parts that are in focus, and it'll do them all at once. So you'll end up with 1 or 2 outputs depending which methods you're using. That's great, but it might just be that your image is too big, too deep, too many photographs in the stack for you to be able to deal with them when it comes to to retouching. There may be, if you have 500 pictures in a stack and you're looking for some particular tiny detail for your retouching later on, it is much easier if that detail is represented in a what's called a slab, which is a substack, a group of images that are stacked together. When I do large stacks, I will usually slab them so that I'll, instead of having 500 pictures, I'll maybe have 10 stacks of 50 pictures, or better yet, 20 stacks of 25. It just makes the processes easier. Decide what you're going to do, because how you go about doing it in the computer will be different. And I can walk you through my slabbing procedure next Thursday if that's of interest to anybody. But there's a very simple interface. I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you. That's what I'll do. That I can do. I will show it to you, in fact, right this minute, because here we are. We're in Xerine. This is a blank page because I haven't imported any pictures in here to stack. But if I wanted to stack a series of images using slabs, all I would have to do would be go to the batch menu up here, and it allows you to set up a slabbing script that will do all of the work for you. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Maybe I should show you how to do that. Maybe I will import a small stack. What I am going to do is walk you through some of the important preferences, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let us move on to understanding the various output methods. This is so important because it kind of explains the differences between the programs. Helicon has 3 methods. It really has 2 methods, but it counts them as 3, A, B, and C. Xerine has 2, DMAP and PMAX. You're familiar with those. So if you're using Xerine, you'll want to think about what does PMAX do and what does DMAP do, and which should you choose. I'll give you a clue. You choose them both because you need parts of both of the images. The PMAX is brilliant at pulling detail, especially fine crossing detail like hairs, edges. The DMAP is smoother. It usually has less problematic artifact, but by and large what the DMAP does is give you surface textures and colors. Now the Helicon outputs are A, B, and C. That's what they're called, which is a little confusing because it doesn't kind of describe what they do. A, I would probably recommend you just forget about. A is a depth map kind of algorithm, similar to DMAP in a couple of loose respects, but otherwise really not. What method A does is it gives you a very soft image with not a whole lot of detail, but it's a depth map with averaging. And in fact, what it boils down to is it's really very much just an average. It finds the in-focus points in the individual frames, and then it creates a transition, kind of a seamless transition between them. The result is you end up with not a whole lot of detail. It's good for low magnification, I guess, smooth backgrounds, and yeah, product shots maybe, flowers. It's not really good for them either. It's generally just a very quick and unsatisfactory stacking method. I'm not sure why they use it. What it does is it chooses the point of maximum contrast within the frame, and then it just kind of blends the neighboring pixels together so everything is nice and smooth, and it does lots and lots of smoothing. It probably produces the cleanest transitions because it's not looking for detailed steps between the points of the depth map, and it's excellent for smooth things with easy transitions, but it's otherwise everything gets a bit blurry. And if you're doing macro photography, you're interested in the details, and they just kind of get blurred away. Fine hairs just get all messed up. Yeah, it's not very good. Detail detail photographers, people who are into the details and want to see the fine detail, won't like the type A method. So you have to definitely pick your photograph for that. Method B is a slightly more refined method. That's their depth map, where they use less smoothing, but they introduce a radius, so that you can control somewhat how much detail is shown. It's usually going to yield a pretty detailed, crisp photograph, and it does so very quickly. It's good for medium or higher magnification, say 2 to 4x, and it's particularly good at surface textures, just like the DMAP is. It's similar to method A, but it uses a larger radius, looking for contrast all throughout the area it's examining. It relies pretty heavily on sharpness locally within the part of the frame it's looking at, but it does do a lot less smoothing, which means it can get a lot more artifact. It's sharper than method A, definitely. Handles complex surfaces better, and kind of gives you a good balance between decent detail and a clean picture. You're probably going to get more artifact at the edges than you are with other methods, and your hair at the edges of stacked images using the B algorithm can get a bit crispy, in my opinion. So if you need more fine detail than you can get in A, and you almost certainly are going to want to do that, then yeah, this might be the clue for you. Method C is the pyramid. It's analogous to the Pmax in Zerine. It pulls the most detail out, because what it's doing is a fairly well, it's called a decomposition, a pyramidal decomposition. It analyzes contrast within the photograph at multiple different scales. So it's looking to build an image that is very contrasty and has a lot of detail retained. It pulls the maximum micro contrast out of an image to preserve edge detail. It also uses little or no smoothing in the Helicon program. It's good for higher magnification stacking, crystals, bug eyes, pollen, surface texture. Surface texture is a little less well represented, where fine crossing detail is better. Pulls out a lot more detail than A or B. It's probably one of the sharper ways to focus stack, and like I say, it's good for fine details. Halos are a problem, and because, as I'm going to talk about, this particular package of algorithms does not have a full service retouching capability, those halos can be a real issue to deal with. And backgrounds can get a bit noisy because of the boosted contrast, and transition zones from one area of focus to another can look a bit jagged and rough. So when the micro detail matters more than a clean background, then that would be when you'd want to use method C. If you're planning on doing any retouching, you need to do method C, because it's the only place you're going to find the detail you need. And if you can do high magnification stacking in Zerine, this would be the better choice of program, I think. Now, in Helicon, in Zerine, we have just two choices, and it doesn't give you a third choice, because there really isn't a role for that third choice, because it gives you so much control in the other in the other modes, in the other algorithms. The first one is the depth map, and it's the hardest one to understand in many respects. It's very sophisticated. In fact, everything about this program is very sophisticated. It's a subtle way to stack compared to what we've been talking about. It works by creating a depth map, estimating a depth map based on your settings, and we'll go and look at them in just a second. It smooths and blends to avoid noise, but you have control over it. You have control over the threshold of the contrast and the amount of smoothing. So you're not at the mercy of the program to decide how much smoothing you need. It can give really, really clean backgrounds, and it is probably the best-in-class retouching base. The DMAP is pretty much always the base image that I use for retouching, and there's a reason for that. The colors and the surface textures are unrivaled when they're stacked in Zerine. It produces probably the least amount of artifact, if you set it up right, the least amount of artifact in any program that you can use. Weaknesses, it does leave some detail behind. In order to give you the nice, rich, lush surface textures, it does leave a little bit of detail on the table. And it can look a little bit too smooth on some surfaces, but there are ways to fix that as well. And it requires human judgment. You have to intervene in the middle of the stack to set the threshold for your contrast, which sounds like it would be a pain, but it's not. It's a real blessing because you can control the way that the program operates. When you need a very tidy, stable, clean image to form the basis for your retouched final image, you need to be using DMAP. You can get all the detail that you want from a PMAX version of the image when you're retouching, and I'll show you how to do that. And if you're using medium or high magnification, this is the way to go. This is certainly the way to get your base image. PMAX is the pyramidal version it's more of a blunt object when it comes to stacking. It uses an idea similar to Helicon C method, where it does a multi-scale contrast pyramid, and it chooses the most detailed pixel at each scale. And there's no smoothing, and you tend to get highly contrasty pictures this way. But the strengths are, it is extraordinarily good at extracting fine detail, especially, like I say, hairs, compound eyes, things that cross that would normally cause problems for the DMAP. It's very, very useful. In fact, I think it exists to be the donor for pixels that you need to move to the DMAP base for a retouched image. Before I get everybody lost in all of these details, let me say one thing, the take-home message here, because I don't want it to get lost in all the noise. The most important thing that I can tell you is, if you are focus stacking and trying to produce the highest quality images you possibly can, it is absolutely vital that you retouch the image. Retouching is part of focus stacking. You can think of focus stacking as being in two distinct parts. The first part is running the stacks to get the two different types of output, the B and the C, or the DMAP and the PMAX, depending on the program you're using. And from those two outputs, or more if you do more stacks like slabbing, but from the two main outputs, what you're then going to do is create the image. The DMAP is not an image. It's not a finished image. Neither is the PMAX. If you want to produce the best possible focus stacked image, you need to learn how to do both of these methods and then combine them in retouching. Now, let's get back to what we were talking about with these highly contrasty PMAX outputs. They are fantastic for detail, but they're also very prone to halos and other artifacts. And you often get not particularly nice backgrounds with it. You can see structure where structure doesn't exist because of the boosting contrast and the kind of texture noise that this stack produces. When you need to pull detail out of something that you're not going to get any other way, you cannot get it in DMAP, that's when you need to use PMAX. In my opinion, you run DMAP and PMAX on every stack. Period. End of story. You cannot know what the outputs are going to look like until you run them. When people tell me that they prefer to run a DMAP over a PMAX, I have to ask, well, why? I mean, you don't know what the other one was going to reveal. You have to do both to know how you're going to put the final picture together. So if we look at the two outputs, the outputs from Helicon and the outputs from Zerine, we end up with detail that's probably best in either Helicon B. Well, it's not best of the Helicons. Helicon B is probably your best detail. PMAX is the better of the two. Clean background, Helicon A gives a really clean background, but the subject usually does not fare as well. You're going to get very few halos in Helicon A, relatively few in Helicon B, but you're going to see a lot more in the pyramid stacks in both programs. So yeah, I won't go into too much of that. I do want to talk about retouching, though. The idea of retouching, well, I think retouching was kind of the purpose behind Zerine getting invented in the first place. It seems to me that everything in Zerine has been structured as a prelude to needing to retouch. Everything leads you towards that workflow, serious retouching takes a very powerful tool. That's what Zerine gives you, and I'm afraid to say that no matter how you cut it, the Helicon does not give you the same professional tools that you can get from Zerine. In Zerine, you're going to combine outputs from different algorithms, and you can also combine outputs from slabs or groups, specific substacks. This is so important because it allows you to do a couple of things that you cannot do in Helicon, but also the thing that really separates the two is that you can actually modify and change the DMAP that underlies the DMAP image. You can actually edit the depth map using the tools that I'm going to show you right now. There are three different ways that you can influence the way the depth map is created. So if you do your stack and you look at the depth map output, and you see that there are things that you would like to change. Let's say that there's a lot more detail than you appreciated, and it's lost in the DMAP image. There are things that you can do in the settings. Let's go and look at them. There are things that you can do in the settings that will actually allow you to rerun that stack, so you can actually edit the depth map, create a new DMAP stack to use as your base for retouching. There is nothing analogous to that in Helicon. The way you do it is through the depth map settings. Well, one of the ways you do it is halfway through doing a depth map stack in Zerine, you're presented with a slider that allows you to set the contrast threshold. Now, I'll explain that when we do our demo next week. But basically, it allows you to decide what Zerine is supposed to treat as detail and what it's supposed to treat as a background. So you set that. When you're doing that, you are telling it that you're changing the way the depth map is presented to the rest of the program when it is producing the pixel layer at the end. So there are a couple of things in the preferences under depth map settings that you can also change. One of them is the estimation radius, which is basically the size of the area that the program uses for estimating where the sharpest point in the frame is. The smoothing radius kind of goes along with it, which tells the program how smooth to make the transitions from one point to the next. We won't go into all of this except to tell you that if you have a subject that is mostly smooth, something that's round and doesn't have a lot of surface detail to worry about, you probably could bump the estimation and smoothing radius up quite high, because it will do better when you have less detail that you're trying to pull out. It will make it will change the depth map by saying, oh no, we're going to use these criteria to decide what is sharp and what is not. So you can use this setting to set your depth map parameters such that you have less artifact. It's one of the least understood but most elegant ways to get rid of artifact in a focus stacked image, is to come into these depth map settings and adjust the estimation radius and smoothing radius for the picture that you are trying to take. This is something that I teach to my students, especially if they're having problems with getting the stacks they want with as few artifacts as possible. There are settings in PMax too, but they're pretty boring, and we won't talk about those today. The alignment, by the way, is what we're talking about. Best to just leave it on default. It knows what it's doing. It'll get your pictures all straightened out and ready to stack together. So bear in mind then that no matter what anybody tells you, the Zerine program is designed from the ground up to support retouching. It has the most sophisticated selection of retouching brushes. It allows you to retouch across algorithms. It allows you to work with any input that you have in a project. Any input and any output can be used as a retouching source. That means you can retouch from a slab, you can retouch from a final output, you can retouch from an input image. You can do all of that in Helicon, but only one at a time, which means you cannot use both a slab and a single input as a source for your retouching, which is crazy. I mean, you have to, if you're slabbing, you have to be able to retouch from the slabs as well as the original images, or your hands are tied. One hand is tied behind your back. So you get this pixel layer, pixel precise, layer-like, Photoshop-like control over how you do your retouching in Zerine. It's very elegant. I really love it. It's my favorite part of the program. Helicon, on the other hand, is more of kind of a clean up on aisle C convenience that doesn't really give you the ability to fine tune your retouching. You kind of have to take what it gives you. It gives you a single source, single image, painting detail from one spot back into the final image, but without any of the controls you get in Zerine. So another thing, by the way, Helicon, one of the things that people rave about with Helicon is the fact that it gives you the option of doing raw in, raw out stacking. That's not even possible. It doesn't do that. It can't do that. You can't stack raw images. They're not photographs. They're big files full of data. You can't stack them. You have to convert the image to a TIFF file or a JPEG in order to stack it. And that's exactly what Helicon does. It just does it under the covers, so you don't know that it's being done. But yeah, it's not raw in, raw out. It's raw in, converted to TIFF, stacked, converted back to something that looks like a DNG or a raw file on the way back out. So that yeah, it's a bit of subterfuge. That's a nice way to put it. So there are a lot of reasons to use the more sophisticated retouching program. It just is a better program, allows you to do far more, allows you to get rid of artifact better. You can fix halos with the retouching in Zerine. You can get rid of transparency easily. You can basically do it all. If you do it for a little while, you'll realize there's not a whole lot you can do. Another thing I would point out is, though Helicon is much faster than Zerine and it looks snazzier than Zerine, but it is not as functional as Zerine. But both of these programs cost the same. So if you're thinking that you don't want the fancy professional tool because it costs too much, they cost exactly the same. You have to have a little bit more skill to use Zerine to its maximum, but yeah, you could say that of any program. If you're working with enormous stacks, enormous snacks. I'm hungry this evening. If you're working with enormous stacks and you're not using a slabbing workflow, you may find retouching a little bit slower. Though honestly, I find retouching in Helicon to be terribly slow because I can't find the detail I'm looking for, and it's just a lot of hunting and pecking. Some of the tools in Zerine are not immediately apparent. The reason I showed adjusting the depth map, for example, or tuning the smoothness, these are important tools and they're very powerful and they're very useful. The brushes are another thing. There's a pixel brush as well as the smart brush and a couple of others, but they're not immediately apparent how to use them, which may be a drawback. If you're just fixing small errors and speed is the most important thing to you, you don't care about how good how good the image is. I think you probably do care about how good the image is, but if you're looking for cleaning up little areas, then I guess Helicon's retouching tool could be helpful and something that you could use. But if you're looking to be able to combine two methods, if you're looking to be able to combine the data from one algorithm with another with the kind of flexibility that you get from Zerine, you're only going to get it in Zerine. So simple repairs. I know a lot of people who take so many pictures for their stacks that Helicon just offers a huge advantage in time, and therefore they become fairly expert at doing some of the tasks that normally would be done by retouching in Photoshop or some other editing program. I think that is leaving by far the biggest opportunity to get a great picture on the table, by far. Every scientist I know who works with photography in their work, who does anything macro, uses Zerine. Every professional photographer I know who focus stacks uses Zerine because of this retouching capacity, and because it's just a more nuanced and controllable process. So I think I beat that to death. I had some other stuff I wanted to talk to you about, but I won't go into this. I won't also go into the difference between the two workflows, because really the Helicon one is self-explanatory. It runs all the methods. You choose the output that you want, and then you retouch any isolated problems from another method or from a source, and then you export it as a TIFF. Zerene's a little bit more complicated. I run the DMAP, I tune the threshold, and then if necessary I fix the smoothing and run it again, but I finally end up with a single DMAP image. Then I run a PMAX, so I have two outputs now, and then I retouch the DMAP using the PMAX as my donor for detail. And I can retouch the damaged parts using my slabs or using individual frames. It doesn't matter, they're all there. I can use anything that I want, and then I export as a TIFF usually back into Lightroom, and it goes right back to where it started, all automated through a plugin that that does all the work for you. Not wanting to put too much emphasis on it, your best pictures are going to come from Zerene. Probably more of your pictures will come from Helicon because it's so much faster. So we won't go there anymore. When I do the demo, I'll try to get my Helicon working again. It stopped working recently, and I wasn't able to record one of my attempts at retouching, but I'll try to get that fixed up in time for our demo. So there are I'm not gonna go into this because we're not gonna have time if I dig too deeply into those differences. Just suffice to say that Helicon will let you copy a patch from one image and paint that patch, those pixels, onto another image. But Zerene lets you completely restructure the underlying image through the depth map, and then when you're adding the pixels on, you're adding the structure of the image as well. It's not just moving pixels around. It's much more than that. All right. So people will argue that no, I'm not going to go there either. I've got literally so many pieces of paper in my stack here. I don't want to run out of time and not give you the really important stuff. I will talk about that threshold slider again, though, because if you ever stacked in DMAP, you may have been perplexed the first time you saw it, but right in the middle of the stacking process, a bar will show up with a slider on it, and you have to pick where to set that slider. As you slide the button to the right, the image fills up with blackness until it becomes completely black. And basically that's what that's saying is wherever the black is on the screen, and it's not the image, it's a depth map. Wherever the black is, it's saying you can ignore this part of the image. There's no detail here. Look the other way, nothing going on here. So then when you release it to finish the stack, what it'll do is those areas that you had the black mask painted over, it won't go looking for detail. It'll just smooth them in, just like Helicon does with that smoothing part of the algorithm. It will make those transitions smooth, and it will focus all of its energy on finding detail where you left the mask off, the white areas. The further you take the slider, the more the detail will be obscured from the picture. Now, the secret is to know where to move the slider to. It's usually just as black mask starts to appear on your subject. That usually means it's going to appear first on the parts of your subject that are going to be smooth, that don't have a lot of detail in them anyway, and that's fine. You don't need to have Zerine looking for detail across the whole of a ladybug's back, necessarily. So you can choose where you put that threshold, and the more carefully you choose, the better your picture will be. So we did cover that. I'm glad. Uh, the lower the threshold, by the way, is a more forgiving a point to have it, because it'll look for detail everywhere. Trouble is, it'll give you halos. If you have it looking for detail everywhere. If you slide it all the way to the right, then only the sharpest edges are going to be revealed as crisp, and you're going to get a lot of areas where there is no detail to be pulled out, and instead you get um, these messes of artifact. I can't remember what they're called. I don't see them very much anymore. That means I must be doing something right. But yeah, they're mucky areas of stuff. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just goop on your picture, and you need to get rid of it by reassigning that contrast threshold. So I'm not going to talk about smoothing or rendering depth maps or depth map tuning. We've been talking about that. These are fancy terms for using those sliders. And what I am going to do, I'm glad I got that far enough back in these pieces of paper to come to the other thing I wanted to briefly touch on, was 3D, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about the difference between Helicon's 3D engine and Zerine's. Helicon actually creates a real 3D surface model. It really only works particularly well with low magnification and simple surfaces. At high magnification, or when you have a lot of detail, the model often misinterprets the actual anatomy, and the geometry can get really confusing. You don't see spatial relationships the way you want to. Zerine, on the other hand, it doesn't try to build a surface 3D model. It's not creating a 3D model in the sense that we normally think about it. It's creating almost an optical illusion by creating a synthetic shift. It basically creates a parallax shift by changing the angle at which the image was visualized at. It's complicated, but it's elegant too. The end result is you get something that is very, very accurate to the actual 3D anatomy that you're looking at. It's particularly good at high magnification, and the beauty of it is, if you're looking to understand relationships between microstructures on something, like diatoms, for example. One of my favorite examples, my friend Bud does a lot of diatom photography now, and three-dimensional imaging using the synthetic stereo of Zerine allows you to see the exact shape of these things, which otherwise is impossible to interpret because they're see-through and they're small and they're flat. If you give a minuscule see-through detailed organism to Helicon and ask it to give you a 3D model, it'll give you a picture of your bedroom slippers or something. I mean, it really doesn't help much at all. So Helicon's 3D models probably okay for basic product photography stuff, flat things where you're looking for just low relief, like on a coin. Probably good for small plants, flowers, leaves, mushrooms, minerals probably, and anything that has continuous curvature on it, so that the algorithm doesn't get confused. it's built for smooth depth gradients, not for sharp gradients. It's not made for high magnification. It does better when the surfaces are predictable, like the surfaces of a cube, and when you have strong, clear contrast at the edges, it does better. And if your subject is transparent, translucent, or iridescent, forget about it. It can't deal with those surface characteristics. So it's not particularly trustworthy for analyzing complex relationships, um, spatial relationships, or topology. If you're doing anything at high magnification, you really need to stick to Zerine for that, because Zerine is not confused by textures. It's quite independent of lighting and contrast. Helicon can do something that Zerine cannot. It can allow you to export an OBJ file or a PLY file, which means theoretically you could take a 3D model from a Helicon stack and 3D print it. Theoretically. I don't know if it's ever been done. You could even open these files in Blender if you wanted to really confuse yourself. So Helicon does have that advantage. It is creating basically an OBJ file, a three-dimensional body that you can actually walk around. You can look around it. That's not what's happening in Zerine. So when I say don't go to your Helicon now and try to 3D print something, because I think that is pretty much theoretical. I can only imagine what it would look like. And remember that the 3D output from a Helicon 3D model is going to be only as good as the photographs were. It's drawn from the depth map. So if your images are not good, if the lighting wasn't good, if you have a lot of artifact, that's going to be incorporated into your 3D model, every bit of it. And that's why it's not good at high magnification. It simply can't handle that. So I guess if there was any particular area that Helicon's 3D would shine, it would be if you were collecting artifacts or documenting low magnification surface structures, or that's about. I can't really think of it. If you want serious high magnification visualization of structure, if you want to actually see what the mouth parts of a bee look like, you're not going to get that information out of Helicon. It'll be quick, but it won't give you the information. You have to do that in Zerine, and you'll get a very clear, very palpable pair of images that you can then view using your stereo viewers or crossing your eyes, that will actually show you exactly what it is that the camera is seeing. Zerine does not lie about topology. It gives you what is actually there. It doesn't impose and then hold you to a depth map model, which is exactly what's going to happen in Helicon. It can't stray from that depth map. It preserves local relationships beautifully. It shows occlusion correctly. When something's in front of something else, there is no doubt. Well, I've seen some 3D stuff out of Zerine that I'm still not sure what was in front of what, but that's Rick's fault because he showed it to me. You'll see a more reasonable representation of three-dimensionality with the outputs that you get from synthetic stereo. Works at any magnification. It works whether your subject is transparent or iridescent, works on compound eyes, works with crystals. It's actually a useful tool, and yeah, it's not useful for reconstruction. It's useful for visualization. If you just want to see what something looks like truly in 3 dimensions, use zeroing. Okay, now I think I've run out of time. I know I've run out of time. My goodness, what didn't I get to? Nothing. Bottom line, focus stacking is absolutely reliant on your choosing the right program for the job. You'd have to tell me what the job was before I could tell you which would necessarily be the best program for it, depending on your style of photography, what you're looking for in your outputs. I know that people who like zeroing, like myself, like it for completely different set of reasons than people who like to use Helicon. And I'm not knocking either one. Helicon is a fantastic program. The first person who will tell you that Helicon is a great program is Rick Littlefield, who will use it from time to time when he needs that kind of output. I use it less because I'm not good at switching back and forward between different platforms, and I love to retouch too much. But there's no doubt that your results will vary, and they're both great programs. The only mistake you could really make is trying to do your 75 deep stacks in Photoshop, because you'll be very disappointed. Though I love Photoshop too, it has things it's good at. Focus stacking is probably not high on the list of those. So listen, pick a program, learn how to use it, and if you find out further down the road that it's not doing something that you need it to do, then switch to Zerine. They cost the same. We're out of time. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody coming. Stuart, I meant to say hi to you right when I came on. I saw your name appear. I do apologize for being rude. I do that every time you come by. Stuart Wood, ladies and gentlemen, has joined us this evening, which is very generous of him to do so. It's good to have you with us. I don't know who else is here because I've had my comments covered up the entire evening. Alistair's here. Diane is here. Thank you, Diane. Diane super chatted me. Art's here. Demetrius is here. Great. The gang's all here. Don't forget, next Thursday, John's here. John Crooks, welcome. Chaitanya Shukla, good morning. I recognize your name from somewhere. I wonder where that was. We've probably spoken at some point. Mike Olson is here. Robert Wester, greetings, my friend. David Brown, and yeah, gang's all here. So good to see everybody. Susan, greetings. I didn't see you sneak in the back there. All right, I'm off, and I'll see you guys on Thursday, I hope, where we'll wrap up this series. And don't forget, next Thursday, no Macro Talk 2, but we'll have a hangout in the afternoon and yeah, celebrate Thanksgiving together. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great middle of the week, and I will see you on Thursday. Good night.